I spend a lot of time outdoors, and I've only had one truly creepy experience. My friend and myself do a ton of hiking, hunting, fishing, and general outdoor stuff. His older brother has a small cabin in upstate New York, just outside of Rome, which is surrounded by state game lands. We go up there all the time, pack up the truck, hitch the trailer with the quads, and go. This happened while we were up there. I'm 22 at the time and my friend is 25. We're making a trip up to the cabin in late September to start scouting some game trails and set up stands for the season. Also, just to get away and fuck off. We pack the truck with food, clothes, ammo, and our guns, hitch the trailer with a generator and 2 quads. We finally get there after about a 6-hour ride. It's about 8 p.m. so it's getting dark out fast, so we get a fire going, crack some beer, and get to unpacking. The cabin is located in the only clearing on the property. The clearing is about 100 yards by 80 yards. While we're unpacking, we notice that shit is super quiet, which isn't necessarily cause for alarm. It's just strange that it's so quiet that it causes me to take notice. We finish unpacking at around 10 p.m. and hit the sack around 11 p.m. Now, when I say a small cabin, I mean it's a small cabin. About 350 square feet in total, with a loft at both ends in the rafters where the bunks are located. Mine is located directly over the only door to the cabin. I wake up around 4 a.m. and hear something moving around outside. I just lay there and listen for a while, figuring it's either a raccoon or a possum looking for some scraps. But it clearly sounds like it's walking on 2 legs. Typically, raccoons make more of a shuffling and rummaging sound. I say fuck it and go back to sleep. Wake up the next morning. Don't even recall waking up. Go outside and get a fire going for breakfast. Shit just ain't right. Certain things are moved, definitely not in the same place we left them last night. My memory is jogged and I remember waking up last night. I asked my friend if he heard anything. Says he remembers waking up, but he doesn't recall hearing anything. He asked me why I moved all that shit around this morning. I tell him I didn't, and about how I heard something moving around outside last night. He says if it wasn't a raccoon, it was probably a coyote or a bear. This makes sense. We decide to go for a hike to start scouting some trails. We grab our packs and head out. We walk for a few miles when we come to this lake that we always go to as a starting point. All the game trails go to this lake. It's the main source of water for the deer and such. We're hanging around the lake shore looking for a sign. We look across the lake, which is about 250 to 300 feet. The bushes are moving. We both see it but can't really see what's causing it. We decide to not fuck with it and continue around the lake. Spend the rest of the day scouting and shit. We head back to the cabin around 4 p.m. We get back to the clearing. More stuff is moved around. What the fuck? It seems like someone is trying to mess with us intentionally. The cooler was on one side of the door when we left. Now it's on the other side of the door. The generator was positioned exhaust facing away from cabin, and now it's turned around. My friend and I are getting freaked out. We both decide that there's no way this isn't some sort of person trying to mess with us. We immediately arm ourselves when we get back to the cabin. He is carrying his Glock 20, and I am carrying my Steer M40. Keep the 12 GA in the cabin. Night rolls in, and we get a fire going. Around 9:30 p.m., we start hearing rustling just outside the firelight. It sounds like people running back and forth. There is at least 2 of them. I hear running to the north, then it stops. Then I hear running to the south, then that stops too. My friend and I instantly grab our guns and our flashlights and start scanning the tree line. We are both at condition 0. The running has stopped, but we can't see anything in the woods. My friend screams, "If anyone is out there trying to fuck around, you're about to get shot." Something starts running on the back side of the cabin. Neither of us can see due to the cabin being in the way. We decide screw this. We get back to back and make our way into the cabin. Once we get into the cabin, my friend grabs the 12 GA. I lock the door, and we both get into the center of the cabin. Whatever these things were start running around outside the cabin. Sometimes they are real close and sound like they are just outside the wall. Other times they sound like they're further out, just running around. Occasionally, one will creep up and slam the wall or door. This goes on for about 2 hours. During this time, my friend and I are communicating using a pen and paper. Our nerves are so frayed by this point that we say screw it. I grab the spotlight his brother kept in the cabin and my pistol. He shoulders the shotgun. We slam the door open, expecting to shoot at the sign of first movement, but instead, all we see is our fire. Whatever was out there made a huge fucking bonfire in our fire pit while they were running around. We go back to back and make our way to the truck. Friend grabs the spotlight to keep watch. I check in and underneath the truck to make sure nothing is there. Everything is clear, so I disconnect the trailer and we just in and take off. We drive about 2 hours into town and sleep in the truck. We come back in the morning and everything is as it was left. Nothing in the cabin is destroyed. None of our clothes or anything are missing. The only thing different was at the back of the cabin, there were rocks laid out so that they made a pentagram. We immediately pack up our stuff, lock up the cabin, and get the hell out of there. We tell his older brother about it when we get back. He just says, when I first stayed up there, I had something similar happen, except I'm fairly sure I shot one of them with the SKS I had with me. He said he went into town and stopped at a bar on his way out. He got to talking with one of the locals about it. Said the local said stuff like that is not unheard of out there. We have been back since and have not had any problems, but that was by far the weirdest and scariest thing I've ever had happen to me. I live in Arizona. The woods north of where I live is called Payson. When I was 9 years old and my uncle was 11, we went for a hike in the woods. My uncle had gotten a 9mm for his 10th birthday, sort of a family tradition. We were told not to take it with us on our hike. So of course, we hid that fucker and put a fake black BB gun in its place. My fat aunt had no idea. We wanted to go shooting, so we walked along the way into the woods, long enough so that no one would hear us. This was both good and bad. I will explain. We finally thought we were far enough away so that no one would hear us, but then we saw the cabin. It was really weird to see a cabin this far out, and I had a really creepy feeling about the whole thing. My uncle was a very brave guy, and also very caring and protective of me. Pretty much all you could ask for in an uncle. He decided to make sure that no one was there, and then we could shoot some cans and shit. I stayed outside and waited for him. About 7 minutes later, I heard a loud smash and sounds of a fight taking place. I ran toward the house, but I cannot explain the fear I felt. I had an abusive stepdad, and it made me very timid. When I got to the back door, I could see into what was the kitchen. I saw my uncle laying on the floor and bleeding from his head. A homeless man, by the look of him, was holding him by his penis and balls and was squeezing them, asking if he was alone. My uncle yelled over and over that he was all alone. The man started kissing him and flipped his body over. In that moment, my uncle noticed my crying face in the doorway and mouthed the word, "Run." He did not look afraid. He looked strong and caring. I understood that he was saving my life, and it broke my heart. I crawled back to our backpacks and remembered the gun. I took the gun shaking out of the holster. My grandpa had showed me how to use it. I went through the front of the house, trying to be as quiet as I could. I could hear the sounds my uncle and the man were making, and they were awful. I pointed the gun at the back of the man and shot twice. I was expecting the sound, but not the smell. All at once, I could smell the most awful thing I had ever smelled before. It was blood and sweat and fear, and I get sick just thinking about it. The man was trying to duct tape my uncle's hands and was about halfway done. The man fell forward, blood coming out of him faster than I thought possible. My uncle looked at me from over his shoulder and gave me a wide smile. His eyes stayed on me as he got up, pulled up his pants, and took the gun from my hand. He said I did a good thing and that I had saved him. The man was making an awful sound and sorta snake crawling around on the floor. My uncle shot him in the back of the head and he stopped. The walk back was very hard for my uncle, and I could see he was in a lot of pain. He had blood running down his leg, and I hate to think where it was coming from. We told my grandfather the whole story, and he drove my uncle to the hospital. He had to get 11 stitches in his anus, and the recovery was awful. The police did not find the cabin or the man. They looked for like 2 weeks, even used a helicopter. They took our statement and that was it. People said I saved my uncle's life, but it was his courage and my grandfather training us that got us out alive. I miss my grandpa Ralph. As for my uncle, he is doing fine. He is a police officer and works with survivors of sex crimes. I love you, Chris. You are my hero. Here is one which included people that I found. After walking along a beach in Olympia, I headed into the woods to explore. It was about 3:30 p.m. at the time. I found this very odd camp with two people. I think they were a couple. The guy looked like he was about 50 years old. The girl was like 30 probably. They looked like castaways because their clothes were just totally messed up and they were all dirty. I said what's up, and they started talking to me, mostly ranting on these strange tangents about the forest. Anyway, their camp was basically blankets all over, and cans and blankets stretched across the trees for cover. Obviously it rains a lot. They had liberty caps, magic mushrooms, laid out drying on one side of the camp. There was probably like 2 pounds of them. One thing that was really weird was these like handmade clay urns laying in a row on a blanket. There was like 15 or so of them, and when I asked the guy about them, he got really pissed and started telling me that if I start fucking with people's shit, I should expect trouble. And the girl like curled into a ball for a bit. Way too weird. I said sorry and whatever, and then the girl asked me if I wanted some beer. I was pretty interested, so I decided to stay. While we were drinking though, they did not talk or respond to any questions. Then I looked at the urns, and the guy just yelled really loudly at me, and then took the girl to the side and whispered to her. Anyway, they came back and started drinking again. It's probably around 6:30 p.m. by now though, but now, they keep glancing at me with really pissed off looks every so often, and were still ignoring me and would not talk to me. I was getting really freaked out, plus it was getting hella late, so I was like, yo, I'm leaving. I acted a bit more aggressive because I was freaked out, and I also had my hand on my knife in my pocket. They still just fucking stared at me, so I left kind of normally, but once I got further away, I just straight up booked it. So that was pretty tripped out, but when I thought I was seriously going to die is when I got back by the camp area and the ranger post. It was pretty far, like an hour walk away, and it was fairly dark and no one was there. As I am passing the post, all of a sudden, I hear this guy just start yelling again, all crazy like, and I look over, and he is just standing over at the edge of the woods, breathing really hard and staring at me. I flipped my shit and started yelling, and I pulled out my knife, telling him to fuck off. Then he yelled at me, "You are such a stupid fuck, you fuck, you fuck." And then he pulled out a gun from his pocket. It was like a tiny revolver or something. At that point, I just flipped, telling him to calm down. And then he just laughed, mostly just snorted, and put it away and left. That was the scariest thing I ever experienced in my life, ever. I just felt like crying the whole way home. Anyway, sorry this story is all over the place and ended with kind of nothing, but it was seriously so messed up. Hey, hope you've enjoyed the story so far. If you want to hear more, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment because it lets YouTube know you like the content and helps more people to see these videos. My next big goal for the channel is 100,000 subscribers, and as a celebration, I will be doing a Q&A video once we hit that goal. Thank you, and back to the stories. So usually I just look around here late at night when I cannot sleep. For once, I have something that I actually want to share. For me, this means that I have something that is not fiction. Yes, something that really happened. If I had to make it up, it isn't good for me to even bother posting. The story does not even involve me directly. I've been told all of this by a coworker. He is in his late 30s, has no reason to lie, and I have seen for myself that certain parts of this are definitely true. Let's call him Dan. Dan, for years now, has often come to work with stories of his problem son. He has a younger daughter as well, Rachel. Around the age of 9, his son Cody began to become a bit of a troublemaker. It started with open defiance of adults and a bit of violence towards other children, including his sister. Now, while I speak to Dan at work, he is not the type of person I would like to associate myself with. I live in the South, and Dan is the type of guy who I would describe as a high-class redneck in a way. Kind of the good old boy that just barely escaped the trailer park. A lot of the things he tells me about Cody seem as though it's the kind of stuff that you could write off as boys being boys. Add to that the fact that I don't exactly see Dan or his wife as being candidates for Parents of the Year. After about a year and a half of Cody being a typical little shit, things start to intensify. The violence starts being directed at teachers and students alike while at school. Cody's fights with his sister, she is about 2 years younger, are more often and lead to things such as a large portion of Rachel's hair being cut off with scissors while she slept. Once, he injured her to the point that she had to have medical attention. It takes a strange turn when Dan has to leave work suddenly one day. When he returns, he tells me that the police had called him. They had both Cody and Rachel at the station. It was summer. Dan and his wife work while the children are kept by a reliable sitter. Cody had been spotted walking down the side of a quiet back road. Dan lives out in the sticks, pulling his sister in a little red wagon. The police want answers, and Dan tells them they were left with the sitter. The police go with Dan to his house, where they find the sitter asleep in Cody's bed. When they wake her up, she seems very confused. She does not remember falling asleep or being tired, or even being in Cody's room. Cody is unresponsive to all questions as to why he left the house with his sister or what he was planning to do. It's all kind of chalked up to be a simple bit of carelessness on the part of the babysitter, and the police leave Dan to figure out why his son is so goddamn weird. While he did not tell me right away, Dan at this time started making a major effort to find out what was going on with his son. Obviously, things were far from being over. It could not have been a month after Cody returned to school from summer break that he was kicked out for attacking the principal. Dan's coming to work with stories more often now and expressing more and more concern. It's at this point that I start to give Dan a bit more credit as a father. I can see that he is worried about the situation and is genuinely confused as to why it's all happening. By the time 2 full years have gone, by now, Cody is now 11 and not doing well being the weird kid at a new school. The school ends up calling Dan and basically telling him that he might want to start considering another school for Cody because he is not adapting well. He's getting into fights daily. He's beginning to use foul language around adults. The principal suggests that Cody be sent somewhere to be evaluated. Before sending him to a shrink, Dan tries to reach out to Cody. In his attempt to bond with his son, he asks Cody about the things he would like to do that he doesn't normally get to. Cody wants to hunt. He says he wants to shoot something. Like I said, I live in the South. Dan sees this as a normal thing for a young boy to have interest in. Dan tells me about how well the hunting trip goes. He does not let Cody shoot anything. He just takes him along with a few of his hunting buddies. Cody is amazed, bewildered by watching the act of hunting, killing, and dressing a deer. Dan tells Cody that if he goes and talks to a doctor, starts doing better in school, then maybe he will be able to have his own hunt one day. Cody doesn't like the idea of talking to a shrink. Dan reminds him of the deal, and he gets Cody evaluated without any kind of trouble. For a while, things seem to be getting better. Cody is not getting into fights as often at school, although at home, he is still prone to fighting with his sister Rachel. There becomes a bit of jealousy between the two. Cody is getting a lot of attention from his father, and Rachel is excelling in school and extracurricular activities. Dan starts to be a little bit more stern with Cody, constantly threatening him with taking the deal they made off the table. And this always works with Cody. Take away his chance to hunt, and he calms up. By now, Cody had been seeing the psychiatrist regularly. She's even come to observe him at school. The doctor tells Dan that she would like to evaluate Cody for a bit longer before she has a discussion with him and his wife. A bit of time passes here without any major occurrences, but when the shrink finally does call Cody's parents in, she has some concerns. Cody has no friends. He keeps to himself at school, talking to no one, not even responding to teachers when they ask him simple questions. It's not really known by Dan at the moment, but the entire community is in agreement that something is off about Cody. It's one of those things though. No one really knows how to handle it, so they just leave him alone. The psychiatrist wants to put Cody on a few meds and continue to see him weekly. Cody becomes a zombie in Dan's eyes. He will barely speak to his parents now. He has no desire to play with other children or really do anything. Dan notices that Cody is beginning to spend a lot of time outdoors, seemingly just roaming through the woods. The only time Cody does speak to his father is to ask when he will be able to learn to shoot. Dan figures that Cody has earned this much after everything that's happened so fast. He begins teaching Cody how to fire a rifle, but still holds out on the actual hunt. Dan is wanting to use this as leverage to make sure that Cody keeps out of trouble. It's around this time that Dan finds Cody in the yard one day, trying to fashion a bow for himself. Dan, taking a bit of note in the types of things Cody is interested in, does a quick check of where all the sharp objects are in the house. Sure enough, one of his pocket knives is missing. On a further check, a sharp kitchen knife cannot be found either. Dan keeps an eye on Cody one Saturday, follows at a distance to see exactly where it is that Cody goes. After dark, Dan walks out into the woods to a particular spot where he had seen his son linger around. He sees a mound of dirt that has obviously been dug up and then placed back over the hole. Of course, Dan wants to know what is buried there. What he finds are both the missing knives and what appears to be the bones of a small animal. Dan does not speak to his wife about what he finds. Not knowing how to handle it, Dan takes the knives, but does not mention anything to Cody either. He does come to me about it. I didn't know how to say that killing small animals is often the trait of a serial killer, so I keep my mouth shut. Dan is at a loss. I feel like this is when he really started to change. He is acting depressed at work, worried. I can tell he is not sleeping much and just isn't focused. Now, Dan makes a bit of a strategic move. He gets Cody a dog, a hunting dog, telling his son, "This is your best friend if you want to be a good hunter. We have to take care of him, teach him, love him." Dan is almost testing Cody at this point. He is praying that he won't find Cody gutting this dog one day. After a few weeks of having the dog, Dan is talking about how good it's going, but mentions something strange. He says that almost every night, at some point, the dog will wake up barking. Dan walks the house and the yard every time it happens. No one else is awake, no one around the house, but it's almost a nightly event. Meanwhile, Cody has found in the dog a subject of focus. He's excited that he gained another tool to assist him on his eventual hunt. Time passes by. Dan begins to cheer up at work again. Cody is 12 years old now, and he is shaping up okay. He had focused in school. He wasn't even fighting as often with his sister. Dan had felt so good about things that he even started taking Cody on hunts. While Cody is still a loner and quiet, he seems to be normal. The shrink had even backed off, saying that Cody had possibly found an outlet that allowed him to function properly. But it wasn't long before Dan started to notice new problems arising. Cody is getting a little bored with the hunting. He talks about wanting bigger game, maybe a bear. He takes an interest in fishing. What's bothering Dan is that he's beginning to feel like what Cody really enjoys is gutting the animals, seeing the blood. It isn't so much about the hunt as it is about the death. Cody is playing GTA now. He's wanting to watch gory movies. All these things seem normal for a boy his age, but Dan is keeping in mind that his son is not necessarily normal. Now the fights start up again. Cody even seems to be becoming more vocal. He is back to cursing at his classmates that he does not like. Dan comes to me one day saying that Cody has a bully, that one certain kid that won't leave him alone. When he talks to Cody about this boy, Cody makes the comment that he should have cut his heart out. Obviously, Dan is concerned. Before he can decide what to do, Cody has been kicked out of school again, for good. When Dan shows up and asks the principal why, he's told that Cody had randomly told his buddy that he was going to take care of him once and for all today. After calling Cody to the office and searching his belongings, a hunting knife is found in his book bag. Dan and his wife can't find a school that will even take Cody at this point. They decide that maybe the best thing at the moment is for Dan's wife to homeschool Cody anyway. Now Cody's violence has no other outlet but his family. When Rachel is home, her and Cody aren't even allowed to be around one another. Cody is spending the evenings doing nothing but starting campfires and staring into them. Dan has lost all hope. He seems to live each day wondering what Cody will do next. Cody threatens to stab his mother one day. That is the last straw for Dan. Feeling like he had maybe been too soft on Cody, Dan starts to give Cody severe physical punishment. Spankings become more like beatings with a belt. Things come to a bit of a climax one day when Cody kicks his mother in the stomach because her and Dan were about to take him to see the psychiatrist again. Dan basically tells me that he fights Cody as if he was a grown man and locks him into his room. Cody goes into some sort of shutdown mode. He comes out of his room only to eat, and to start his campfires at night. His guns and knives have all been taken away, and there is no hunting or killing for Cody. Not much left of this at all, really. Like I said, this story is not resolved, it's still ongoing. But what happened today is what made me bring it here. Cody seemed to be a lost cause. Dan does nothing but try to fix the situation for a while. The way he explained it to me was that he thought Cody was going to have to be taken away, so he just wanted to let him have some time at home before that had to happen. In the next few weeks, Cody continues to not speak to anyone. Now, remember how the dogs bark at some point every night? Dan explained later that it had become a thing that just happened. He figured it was some car or a sound that the dog could hear that they could not. Dan just tells the dog to be quiet and goes back to sleep. One night, the dog starts barking, and this time he won't stop. Dan gets out of his bed and starts his search of the house. Cody isn't inside of his bed. When Dan makes his way out of the back door, he sees a fire at the edge of the woods behind his house. It's a bit of a walk, but as Dan gets closer, he sees that on the other side of the fire, looking either at him or just staring blankly in the direction of the house, is Cody, just standing there. Dan gets close enough to see that Cody is looking at him over the flames of the fire. The way Dan described it to me, I don't know. We just stared at each other. I didn't know what to say. I was almost waiting, hoping he'd say something to me. And just like that, something told me to leave him alone. I turned around, I went back inside, and fell asleep. It happened so fast that I barely even remember going back to bed. I woke up, trying to convince myself that I dreamed it. Those stories of Dan's were something I always kind of wrote off as, that kid is fucked in the head. That was until today. Today, Dan walked into work as pale as a ghost. What he told me sounds absolutely insane, unbelievable. I'm sure everyone is going to scream lies, but I'm just telling you it, how it was told to me. So, Dan goes home like it's any other day. His wife wants to go have dinner with her sister, so Dan is there with both Cody and Rachel. They eat a meal like any other night. Afterwards, Cody actually speaks to Dan. He tells him he wants ice cream. Dan is taken by surprise, of course. He had not heard a word out of the boy in weeks. He tells Cody that he thinks ice cream is a great idea, trying to do the whole dad thing. Seeing it as an opportunity to possibly have a moment with Cody, Dan tells Rachel to stay at the house while they go and get some ice cream for everyone from the store. The ride ended up being uneventful. Dan tries to question Cody, but the only thing he'll say is, "I just wanted some ice cream." As Dan is driving up to his house, he notices something in the distance, something by his mailbox that isn't usually there. He is in a panic by the time he reaches his home. Curled up by the mailbox, waiting by the road is Rachel. She is shaking. Dan said he could see her shaking before he got out of the car. As he runs to her, all she is saying is, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy." Dan is asking what is wrong, and all he can eventually get out of her is, "He hurt me." Dan calls out for Cody, then looks up to see him calmly walking back towards the house. Dan tries to calm Rachel down, but she will not stop shaking. She is totally hysterical. He eventually puts her in the car and runs into the house. The dog is running in circles and barking in the kitchen. Cody is nowhere to be found. Nothing looks out of place. Nothing looks like anyone has broken in. Dan calls his wife and tells her what happened and to meet him at the hospital. When he gets back to the car, Rachel is saying, we have to leave. I'm not going back. I won't go back into the house." After Rachel is finally somewhat calm at the hospital, her story is that she was putting the dishes away in the kitchen. The dog started to go crazy. Then something hit her in the back, knocking her to the floor. She immediately ran outside of the house to where Dan had found her. The doctors did find some slight bruising on her back. Otherwise, nothing seems wrong with her. A family member had been sent to the house to find Cody. He was sitting by his fire, as usual. They spend the night in a hotel. Rachel still seems terrified. Cody is still silent. Dan left work early today, looking like he had not slept at all. Nothing was taken from the house. There was no sign that someone had broken in, and the door was locked. The dog started to go crazy. Rachel said she turned to look and see why the dog was barking, and something knocked her to the floor. Look, I'm not trying to feed you a spooky story. I just wanted to share some fucking crazy shit that I heard. And obviously, the story is not over. Can't say when or what will happen next, but hey, you can't please everyone. Not that I was trying to. I figured if anyone would appreciate something like this, it would be X.